and then the rest is gonna kind of pour out, right? So this idea of can you pick it up? We can tell if something is a liquid or a solid based on how we pick it up, what happens when we pick it up. Anybody disagree with that idea? What else? Thank you, Allie, Allison, Kristen. Some great thinking. Andy?
Well, you could pick it up maybe if you're like, if you have like a little bowl or a little, you can't like physically like pick up with your finger, but like if you have like a scoop.
Oh, how does that change that if we have something else to pick it up?
Usually just,
Wouldn't it be like, wouldn't that relate to it doesn't take the shape of its container?
I don't know, what do you think?
Couldn't you write, can you pick up the entire thing, like, in one, with your hands? Or like
With hands?
With, like, I don't know, cause you could pick up, like a house is a solid, but you can't pick it up with your hands, but you could use like a crane, but, yeah, I don't know, this is not.
Uh-oh.
Very specific, yeah.
Getting
Well,
tougher.
like, just not with like a bowl, like it's not like you're like having to put something inside of something else to get it. That like it makes sense. Like you could pick it up on its own. You don't need to put it in something to pick it up.
So
Like,
without the use of a container,
yeah,
is that what you're saying?
yeah.
Does that help Andy with what you're saying? Was it you who said it? The scoop,
Mhm.
without the use of a container?
Yeah.
Okay. There's gotta be other ways to determine whether something's a solid or a liquid. What do you think? What are things that you can do with a solid that you can't do with a liquid, or things that you can do with a liquid that really doesn't work with a solid?
You can throw a solid.
You can throw a solid. Tell me what you mean by that.
Like, if I picked up my water bottle and threw it, it would go the direction I'm throwing it, but if I tried to pick up like a handful of water and throw it, it wouldn't do the same thing.
It wouldn't do the same. Coming back to maybe this idea of because you can't pick it up,
Yeah,
would it connect to this idea?
yeah.
Okay. But you're right, it's difficult to pick up water, and that's why they don't have water fights that way, right?
Yeah.
We put them in a balloon and then we throw the balloon. You guys have all had balloon water fights, right? Okay.
You can put things in liquid and like the, what is it called, displacement, like there's that whole thing.
Oh, this idea of displacement. Why does water get displaced?
Because you put something else in it, like sometimes a solid, and it like the water just goes around the solid.
Okay.
And it lifts the level, I guess.
What makes it so that, so I hear you saying you could put something into a liquid because you're able to do what with a liquid? That would be different than a solid. Like I can put something in my water, right? And the water is gonna be displaced because I'm able to do what, as opposed to doing that with like this water bottle. I can't put anything in this water bottle like this, right? Through it this way and displace the water bottle. Because what can't I do?
You can't go through it.
What?
Go through it.
Yeah, you can't push through it, right? So is that the idea of can you push it? Does that make sense? Can you push through it? What, can you push through water? Can you push through a brick? No. What else?
Well, what about like, you know how like in a river, like the rocks, like every time the water hits it, like over time it might like cave away at the rocks, like
Oh,
weathering it away.
okay.
So it's kind of like going through it, but it's not over time. 'Cause I
Okay.
feel like over time, like, let's say there's like lots of rain, like the rain can like mess up the land.
Okay. So how would you say that fits into this? So you're talking about kind of like this erosion idea?
Like the fact that solids could be altered, like erosion.
Okay, so they can be broken down?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
If they, yeah, like if liquids and solids come together sometimes, maybe it could like alter the solid.
Would that help us determine whether it is a solid or a liquid?
I feel like
I don't know.
I feel like that goes along with like the how a solid you can change it if you like use a lot of force, like how I could like take that plastic tumbler and if I like chuck it to the ground, I could like break it into pieces. That's kind of like, let's say like the water is using force to like break the rock. Just it's like very small amount of force. That's why it takes so long. But like I feel like that just would just determine if something's a solid, like can it be broken?
So we're still kind of thinking, what I hear you guys talking about is you're still trying to think about how does this change? Right? This idea of how is it changing? Okay, how are solids and liquids interacting to create change? Is that, Andy, am I capturing? And I think that's what Cassie
Yeah, it's not
kind of
exactly how
captured.
lines of, like,
So it's a little bit
is it a
different than
solid? Yeah.
this, right? Because what are we trying to do?
Right now, we're trying to come up with rules that like are like ways that you can say like check off like yes, no, like this is solid.
Check off yes, no for what, Cassie?
Like if you have something and you're like, hey, I wonder if this hair scrunchie is a solid. I'll be like, does it take the shape of its container? And then I'll ask myself these questions and then depending on the responses, I'll know if it's a solid.
Okay. So what's another way in which we can do that? Allie, and then I'll go to Jessie.
I was kind of thinking, like, can you break it and it, like, won't go back to its original form? Like, cause if you break up water and then you just pour it back into another container, it'll go back to its original form. Or, and then, like, if you break a foam, then it's not gonna, like, in half, you can't get it back together necessarily.
So, kind of, if I break water, it can go back to the way. So, what form is water before I break it?
Like liquid, like if you just separate it or like splash it on the floor and like drop it on the floor or something, it will, and then like somehow collect it again, then
It
will
goes back to.
to.
Do you think that fits back to this idea of taking the shape of its container?
Yeah, I think so.
Whereas a solid, if you break it, I mean, you're not putting it into any kind of. It's gonna. You can fit it back together, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like you're pouring it into another. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Does that connect? Did I capture that?
I think so.
Okay. Jessie?
So I was thinking about when you mix two things together. So if you have a cup of coffee and you put milk in, which is another liquid, they're going to mix together. Whereas if you put an ice cube in the coffee, it's either going to sink or float depending on the density. So like you could put something into a liquid and if it blends together, maybe it's two liquids, but if you put a solid into it, it's not going to like take the it's not going to blend. It's going to either
Because it's gonna be, it's not gonna take the shape of that container, right?
well,
Is that,
like even if you had a swimming pool and you put a rock in, the rock is going to just go to the bottom. It's not going to spread throughout the swimming pool. But if you poured like coloring into the pool is going to turn a different shade, and the two liquids will blend together.
so there's a possibility of mixing together.
Right.
What about, though, if you have like salt and water,
Well, isn't salt?
right, but can you still come up with one,
Oh, it dissolves.
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Never mind.
How would you get, let's say I have my coffee, okay, and I have my mug in the morning. My favorite thing to do is get coffee in the morning. I love it. How does my coffee get into the mug? I pour it in, okay? What if my coffee is too hot and I need to add an ice cube? What do? I throw it in. Does the ice cube pour?
No.
No.
So what can we say about liquids?
You pour them.
What do you guys think? Jessie says maybe we can pour them. Can we pour a book?
But
It's
if
the
you-
same concept as liquids flow.
Liquids flow? Tell me more.
because liquids don't have a certain shape, so they like flow and move when they're like moving. But solids just move through, they stay their same shape and like fly through the air.
So connecting back to this idea, and they can flow. Any questions about? Bless you. So what should be our next step?